Hello everyone, my name is Charles Lamanna, Corporate Vice President of Business Applications and Platforms here at Microsoft, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome you to Powerful Devs 2023. One of the most important things when we talk about Power Platform and low-code development is what it means for professional developers, and you are exactly the right audience, and this is exactly the right content to make that a reality. And the reason that we're so excited about this is because every developer is dealing with a growing backlog, a growing workload, and needs to find ways to go faster. And the good news is, low-code turbocharges your development potential, makes you build apps and solutions and workflows and use AI faster than ever before. And when I talked about that growing backlog, let's put some numbers on it. There's over 500 million new applications that need to be built in the next 2 years. That's more than all the apps built in the last 40 years. That is a staggeringly large number and is a challenge for all of us that are building software to go build the solutions at the pace that businesses and users require. And compounding the fact is that even if we wanted to grow our teams to have more developers contributing to these projects, there's a 4 million developer shortfall in the Americas alone. So huge developer demand, not enough developers to build it. That's pressure on all of our shoulders to go create these solutions in new and interesting ways. And that is where the Power Platform comes in. Whether you're a no-code or low-code, or if you like pro-code, like to write in Visual Studio, everybody can use the Power Platform to build solutions faster than ever before. Whether it's analyzing and reporting data through Power BI, or building web and mobile applications with Power Apps, or creating workflow and robotic process automation through Power Automate, creating chatbots and conversational experiences in Power Virtual Agent, and last but not least, using Power Pages to build business websites, you can build solutions that are enterprise grade with low-code tools faster than any other really option out there. And of course, underpinning all of the Power Platform are three of my favorite components out there: Dataverse for your low-code data platform and data needs, AI Builder for accelerated and low-code AI capabilities, and Power FX as everybody's favorite low-code expression language. Together, this is something really special, and we see this quickly becoming the common way of building solutions in the enterprise. In fact, Gartner has said that 70% of new applications will be developed through low-code or no-code technologies in the enterprise by 2025. And this isn't because there's going to be a bunch of business users only using the tool. It's because IT and pro devs are also going to use these tools to build solutions faster than ever. In fact, over 25% of Power Platform developers are classically trained professional developer or IT professionals. So a really interesting transformation that we've seen, and that is on a big number. There is over 7.4 million developers using the Power Platform every single month. This is a massive, in fact, one of the most massive developer communities in the world. And it didn't even exist 5 years ago. Great users and great developers like yourself have picked up these tools and built solutions and helped teach and grow an amazing community around the Power Platform. And although 7.4 million is a big number, it's just the beginning. Like I said, the developer shortfall is getting worse and worse. There's more and more need to build these solutions, and the only way we can do it is if we not only go faster using these tools, but teach and grow a whole new cohort of developers to leverage low code and create amazing solutions. And up to this point, I've been all about talking about Power Platform, all about low code. But low code doesn't exist in a vacuum. In fact, it's part of one of the most amazing developer tool chains out there. Here at Microsoft, that's GitHub for source control and CI/CD, Azure for hosting your solutions and your infrastructure and platform components, Visual Studio for where developers actually write code, as well as the Power Platform as the no-code, low-code way to create great solutions. It's not either or. It's not Azure or Power Platform. It's not Visual Studio or Power Platform. All of the amazing announcements and all the amazing features I'm going to talk about today, and you'll hear throughout the event, will show how these things go great together. From low code all the way to backing Kubernetes clusters and REST-based APIs and big data lakes through Azure Synapse, you can do it in one integrated environment. The idea is that if you use pro code and low code together, there are no limits to what you can build, and there's no limits to how fast you can build it. From Azure Data Services to Azure Compute to Power Platform on top, you can easily leverage all the right tools for the right job. You can use Power Platform at the top to compose solutions and microservices. Then you can drop down lower into the stack when you need to write code, when you need the extra control. And of course, all of that can be managed in GitHub and with customization through Visual Studio. This picture has a lot of logos on it, but it's because there's a lot of power, a lot of potential, a lot of capability when you start to paint the picture of your solution by using all the colors on this palette. That is what's so exciting about Power Platform right now. And that's why I am so happy that Power Platform and Azure and all these other dev tools all sit in one group at Microsoft. We all work together in this group and making sure that we're building that next generation developer tools and capabilities, and a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different perspectives, but it all comes together to make developers more efficient. And to provide some reinforcements to those developers, we like to talk about this really new emerging concept called Fusion Teams. What a Fusion Team is, for folks that haven't heard about it before, is this idea of professional developers, business analysts, and IT admins collaborating on a single project. The idea being, if you like to write code, you can write code. But if someone else from the business, say in the sales department or the finance department or the marketing department, wants to do some customization and visualization on top of it, they can do it by leveraging your assets, by bringing everybody into the fold, underneath the tent to create these solutions. You draw from the strengths of all these different types of users. And this idea of Fusion Teams will increasingly be a major component of how enterprise applications are developed. And if we look at Microsoft's rich history with .NET and SQL Server and more, you can see that business application, enterprise application development is one of the most common use cases. So low code and Fusion Teams are two newer concepts, but two essential concepts to be a productive and efficient enterprise application developer. And like any other developer presentation, don't just take my word for it. Don't just look at the slides that I'm going to run through. Let's actually take a look at a real hands-on demo and see the Power Platform in action.
How many of us here have updated our internet provider in the last 3 years? We all know how time-consuming and stressful changing providers can be. Imagine making that kind of change as a large business. The stress is multiplied by 1,000. But Lumen, one of the largest telecommunications companies in the US, found a better way to manage complex change. They decided to use Power Platform to build a solution. In the beginning, the reaction from many pro developers at Lumen was, low code is a black box, and I know I will hit a wall at some point. Well, today, I will share with you the story of how pro devs at Lumen embraced the Power Platform and became huge advocates for low code along the way. Lumen's original process involved capturing customer information in a mass of offline documents and spreadsheets. The drag and drop nature of Power Apps and its fast deployment capabilities enabled pro devs at Lumen to put together not just a prototype, but a working solution extremely rapidly so that they could invest time right from the beginning on more complex requirements. First, Lumen devs decided to add a new column that calculates the day since a project started. Power App Studio enables editing this data table without ever having to leave the app. What's more, this inline editing experience does not compromise the dev team's ability to extend this app and truly customize it with code. In fact, Power Platform is open by design to allow all layers of apps to be extended with code, be it front-end, back-end, database, or integration. Let's see this in action. We click Edit Columns to launch the table editor, where we can see and update the data in the table. We can also add and edit any of the columns in this table schema. We create a formula column and use PowerFX to define it. Here we can see handy syntax coloring, completion, and inline error descriptions as we build the formula. Once this is ready, we save it and the new column is added to the table and computed for every row. Now let's take a look at cards. Cards is a brand new feature of Power Apps to create tiny, task-specific apps that are used from right within a team's chat. When a new migration is approved, a Power Automate flow is kicked off, and the migration team receives this card in Teams. As you can see, the card presents them with the deal context and the ability to choose which team member to assign to lead the migration. There's no need to wait on details from the sales team or to have to switch to a different app to get context. The relevant info is right there where the migration team works, right in Teams. So you're probably wondering, how was this card built? Historically, if I wanted to build interactive, visual, and data-driven cards or UIs and show them in Teams, I'd have to cover several key requirements, including knowing the data schema of how the data is stored so I can query it, how to handle input validation if I have input form fields, and of course, making sure the card is only accessible by those who should have access to it with the proper security. Power Apps does all of this for me. I start off in this low-code designer with handy data connectors, including Dataverse, which we're using as the source of truth for this migration. I can quickly design the card layout and pull in the right data. I use PowerFX to power this Assign Project Manager button. The best part about this is that I still have full control of the card's behavior through this JSON view right here. This is very useful to me because I want to manipulate or transform the JSON string of all the project migration details retrieved by the Show Details button. Also using PowerFX, I use parse.json to parse the string into a JSON object, turning it into an easy-to-understand table. And just like that, this card is ready to go. With that, Lumen now has an app, some automation, and a card. The final piece that remains for this migration process is how customers will engage with the company to stay up to date about their request. The team decides that a site is the best way to do this, so they use Power Pages to build one. They start off by designing in the Power Pages Maker Studio. Here, it's so easy to simply drag and drop content like Power BI dashboards and surveys. But guess what? Just like the rest of the Power Platform, pro devs can easily make more advanced customizations. From the Maker Studio, I jump straight into something I am very comfortable with, VS Code. Right here, I click this button to edit in code, and with one click, I am presented with a new tab running vscode.dev, a lightweight version of VS Code in the browser. Now we're talking my language. I don't need to download any tools, and I can fine-tune the layout by working with the page's underlying HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In this example, I want to display FAQs coming dynamically from a Dataverse table. And since I need to handle multiple platforms, web, desktop, hybrid, mobile, iOS, Android, I want to make sure the FAQs look amazing everywhere. So I make some code changes directly in this page, sync them, and they're reflected in the Maker Studio immediately. Being able to develop business solutions quickly and still knowing I can jump into the code where I need to makes this a great development experience. We've seen today how Lumen has been able to build a world-class migration process that stops that feeling of, we're changing internet providers right in its tracks. Pro devs can easily extend Power Platform with rich tooling, which makes for a true no-cliffs app development and automation experience. Best of all is that all this power is available to you today.
And as we saw in that demo with Lumen, it's incredible what's possible when you draw from all the different elements of the Power Platform. Whether it's interactive, collaborative experiences through things like cards to external-facing websites, you can stitch it all together and get more value, more solution built in less time. And this is something that so many of our customers are using. In fact, over 97% of the Fortune 500 uses the Power Platform today. So a lot of adoption and a lot of usage. And although there's so many companies and so many users on the Power Platform today, we are not resting. We are eagerly innovating and building new solutions based on great feedback from users like you about where we can improve and enhance the experience as needed. One of the most exciting things that we announced last fall was co-authoring. One of the biggest concerns we heard from developers who were embracing things like Power Apps is that it was a challenge to have multiple users develop solutions at the same time. However, with co-authoring, It's now possible so that multiple users can make changes on screens, on logic, on customizations, on API calls at the same time. And you can do this in a purely visual-based experience, just like you would inside of PowerPoint or Excel. And you can also do it in a way that it syncs back to a Git repo so you can run full source control and CI/CD on top of it. So no matter which angle you want to take, maybe for a little bit of innovation, doing it in the graphical user interface, co-authoring, and then maybe for what gets checked into the repo, you use Git. That is something that you have the flexibility to do with Power Apps in this amazing new co-authoring capability. And what we've heard and what we've seen is that this type of collaboration is expected from our users. You see it inside of Office, you see it inside of Visual Studio, you see it inside of Canva or Figma. Every modern application has this rich collaboration, and that's why we've brought this real-time co-presence and real-time collaboration backed by source control to Power Apps in the Power Platform. And this type of collaboration makes it easier for you to work with other devs on your team, but also to take advantage of those fusion teams that I mentioned, where you have business users and IT professionals contributing with the professional developer in a single solution. Now, to get back to the heart of this session, and that is the fact that Power Platform loves to support professional developers and to make them more efficient. And we have released an amazing amount of capability since we last came together for Powerful Devs. You can see it across CI/CD, pipelines, onboarding, and code-first experiences. I'll have a few examples and micro demos of these things, but it's just amazing how much new functionality is out there. If you are a developer, you have first-class enablement in the Power Platform. We have GitHub Actions, we have Azure DevOps Actions, both of which are generally available and ready to support your entire software development lifecycle. We also have built-in configuration-only, low-code-based developer pipelines for building and publishing to production, to pre-production, or user acceptance testing. And they can be triggered from code-based environments, whether it's CLI or API or inside of Visual Studio. So that same type of easy experience you're used to, building UIs and workflows and visualization reports in the Power Platform, you can bring to building that dev pipeline. Additionally, to get onboarded, we heard the request to enable a developer environment, and we did just that. You can now use Power Platform developer licenses, so anybody in the company can get started at no cost and use these capabilities to test and experiment and learn. And last but not least, code-first experiences. We kept hearing the request to be able to peek behind the Power Platform solutions and look at the actual source, have something that you can do a diff with and check in to GitHub or elsewhere. And we now have done that consistently throughout the Power Platform, where you can see and edit and tweak and customize from inside of a text-based IDE all these great capabilities. And one of the things that we also took to general availability last year, so that as you onboard and you do your CI/CD and you do your development and you bring teams together and you have your pipeline, is to also provide new ways and new options to purchase Power Platform which match what developers already know and love. And what we announced is you can now use a pay-as-you-go option in your Azure subscription for Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI, and maybe some more coming soon, where you can easily use and build solutions, and as they are consumed and as they provide value, only then do you actually have to pay for it. And this works right inside that Azure subscription the same way every other Azure service works. If you want to do alerting and monitoring on Azure billing resources, you can do that. If you want to use this as part of your existing Azure agreement, you can do that. It's a low commitment, easy way to mix and match these resources, because we recognize, and as a developer in a past life, I recognize that you really don't want to think about billing and purchasing when you build these solutions. But the reality is, if you're mixing and matching databases and storage and Synapse together with a Power App, you want it all to be managed and configured and build back the same way. So in addition to that billing component, and I hinted at this earlier, we've done a lot to expose YAML files which map to Power Apps So you can actually check these into your repo, and you can do diffs, and you can easily spot different components and controls, in addition to open sourcing the PowerFX expression language. That way you can have the same type of expectations for these low-code solutions that you do for your pro-code solutions. You're not having to go only through a graphical user interface to look at changes that happened, but instead can drop in and use the same type of tools that you already know and love. And this makes things like a pull request feel really natural, even if you're building a very complex Canvas app in Power Apps. So this is something that I'd say the really experienced Power Platform users are really probably energized about as we continue to make improvements here, because it makes it easier and easier for you to treat this as a true pro dev artifact. And pipelines. Pipelines are core to every developer's workflow. And when I say pipeline, I'm talking about how do you go from check-in to test to deploy to roll out worldwide. And what Power Platform pipelines enable is an integrated experience inside of the Power Platform user experience and configuration options associated with environments that reduces friction and creates more visibility around changes and how they progress from dev to test to prod. And this allows you to do things like validate dependencies, run solution checkers, run app checkers, run flow checkers, to make sure that you have the high quality that you expect before you push Power Platform solutions to production and to your users. And this is something that we all are familiar with as a developer, but something that wasn't as first class in the Power Platform in the past. So this really is part of changing the model to run mission critical solutions through the Power Platform. And as these solutions get built, they of course generate a ton of data, which hopefully is stored inside of Dataverse. And if you do use Dataverse, Synapse Link is now enabled. It reached general availability at Ignite near the end of 2022. So you can now have a simple and easy configuration to enable near real-time replication from your Dataverse backend all the way into Azure Synapse. This makes it so that just like how you can configure SQL or Cosmos DB for Synapse Link, you can do the same thing from the Power Platform. And what we're seeing a lot of our customers do is you may have many different Dataverse instances as part of many different solutions, but you want to export that data to Azure Synapse so you can very easily generate reports across those Dataverse instances and get insights and even do machine learning across all those different applications and solutions. That is easier than it's ever been in the past because of Synapse Link. And the reality is we think just about every data service is going to need to have easy integration with Synapse, because that is the center of analytics and intelligence in the Azure cloud. And that's when Dataverse is a great resource for operational and reporting and visualization, but it's not a full intelligent data platform, which Synapse enables. So this allows you to very easily mix and match and bring together the pro dev and low code artifacts and assets. And this is an important bit that I mentioned earlier, this idea that it's never about being Azure or Power Platform. It's not about Synapse or Dataverse. It's about both of them together, making a solution better and built faster than in the past. And one of the things that we really focused on too is making it easier to go from the visual representation to the pro code representation in the Visual Studio tools you already know and love. So if we look at Power Pages, you can see here there's a small little screen showing how you can edit code as a first-class button right inside of the Power Pages user interface. And what that will do is it'll actually open the code behind that visualization you see right inside of code space. So even in the same browser session, you're able to see all the different HTML, the additional templating or TypeScript or CSS that's powering that experience. And this ability to go back and forth seamlessly from visual representation to codeful representation and back and forth, we've enabled for the first time inside of Power Pages, but it's something we intend to bring to all of the Power Platform. The idea being we don't want to have a big separation and a big wall between how you do visual coding and visual development against that codeful development and codeful processes. So this idea of code behind, it's not something new. It's been around in many different UI in the past, all the way back to Visual Basic, say, inside of Excel, or things like ASP.NET in the past, brings it all together now inside the Power Platform. And we've talked about how you build the solutions, how you deploy the solutions, how you manage the data out of the solutions. But on day 100 or day 1000 after you build a solution, monitoring is everything. You need the ability to see what's happening inside of your application or your workflow, where there are failures, what performance looks like, where you have unhandled exceptions, and more. And with our Azure App Insights integration, you can very easily export telemetry and insights from Canvas applications, model-driven applications, Dataverse, and more. And we really view Azure App Insights as that central place for application-level monitoring. And instead of creating a different way or a whole new way of doing it inside of Power Platform, we're using the tool that developers are already familiar with. So all the rules, data integrations, and triggers that you're used to, those will also work in the case based on the telemetry generated by the Power Platform. And we've done the work to expose all the right hooks and the easy configuration to make that more straightforward than having to add trace and log statements all over the place. So something that's really helped evolve and grow over time to cover a much broader section of the Power Platform. And as people use the Power Platform, one of the things that we see being really key and as to why it helps developers go faster is the built-in integration capabilities for the Power Platform. There are over 900 data connectors available to SQL, to AWS, to Snowflake, to Oracle, to ServiceNow, to you name it. You probably can easily leverage it and integrate those systems into your Power Platform solutions. And how many developers want to spend all their time doing data integration between all the existing enterprise systems? Not many. Instead, you'd rather want to spend your time building logic, using machine learning models, building your end-to-end services, and Power Platform makes that very easy to reach out and integrate with the bigger IT landscape without being stuck spending your entire day or month or sprint doing data integration. And one place where we've really pulled ahead and done a lot of work of those 900 connectors is around SAP. We've now released SAP connectors and templates which support many different SAP versions, topologies, and authentication models. These connectors and templates also bundle up low-level primitives like BAPI calls and more to create higher-level constructs around business logic and business events. This makes it so if you have to build an enterprise application solution or workflow which integrates back to the SAP instance that's running at the heart of your company's business, you can do it. And you can spend most of your time building your app, not integrating your app. And SAP is one of the areas where we heard a lot of requests, and for professional developers out there, one of the things which really helped accelerate how they can deliver value in core operations and core processes at work. And the reason this is important is every single company, every single customer that we work with is trying to find ways to be more efficient and to do more things in less time. In the broader, I think, challenges we're all going through to create solutions in a world where I'd say there's broad macroeconomic uniqueness. Now, for one of my favorite things is what AI means for the Power Platform and how AI is really changing the game in terms of how quickly we can build. Folks probably know ChatGPT and all the other OpenAI-based large models that you've probably seen, like DALL-E and others. And what we've seen is that we can take this AI capabilities and actually create a co-pilot-like model where you're going to go from AI being kind of lightweight integration for people to people being increasingly supervisors and editors around AI. And a great example of that inside of the Power Platform is Power Automate AI Copilot. This uses the same large language models that power GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT. It's GPT 3.5 and Codex, so it makes it possible for you to just describe in natural language, in a sentence, what you want to happen, and we will build the first scaffolding and templating of that automation. So even if it's complex with conditionals and loops and multiple actions, you can just describe it and it will automatically create it and bring you to the Power Automate Visual Designer to customize and tailor as needed. we've seen that this already, for users who have adopted this since it rolled out a few months ago, a 50% reduction in development time. It doesn't replace development, it doesn't replace low-code development or pro-code development, but it gets you there faster. And that's what we're seeing across the board. All this amazing AI innovation is all about making you more productive and more efficient. And this is one of the things that's just the beginning of a ton of amazing innovation around AI and the Power Platform that you're going to see over the course of the next few months. And that's something that we think is going to be very, very exciting, because these types of innovations are going to start to reimagine and recreate so much of what's done in these development environments. And the reason it's being enabled is because of these large language models. These big transformer AI models are going to really define how we do development over the next decade, where we're going to increasingly go from a model of people working side by side, like that collaboration example I shared earlier. So say a team of humans working on a project, to a team of humans working on a project alongside with AI. AI that helps coach them, makes suggestions, does token completion, and will generate artifacts just based on natural language. This is an exciting transformation. This is a once in 20 years types transformation. And we think that Power Platform and users and developers on the Power Platform are incredibly well positioned to capitalize on this change to become even more efficient and even more powerful as a developer. And for those who are new to the Power Platform, and maybe this is the first time you've heard about some of these things, the biggest thing I would say is please get started today. Go check us out, aka.ms/lowcode, and you can be building your first app, your first workflow, your first dashboard in just the next hour or two. It's that easy to get started, and almost like any other dev tool out there, there's no better way to learn more about it than to get hands-on. So definitely check it out. And for those who have been using the Power Platform for a while and are checking out these sessions for some updates and some new insights, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for using our products. Thank you for giving us great feedback. And thank you for being part of one of my favorite communities I've ever worked with across Microsoft, because there's so much energy, so much passion, and I'm always blown away by what everybody builds. Thank you for having me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions.